The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, the golden new era of the 1990s has been welcomed and praised by many observers, but I'm afraid a different type of new era is arriving, a dangerous one, heralding the end of 30 years of fiat money. If so, it's a serious matter that deserves close attention by Congress. There's nothing to fear from globalism, free trade, and a single worldwide currency. But a globalism where free trade is competitively subsidized by each nation, a continuous trade war is dictated by the WTO, and the single currency is pure fiat, fear is justified. That type of globalism is destined to collapse into economic despair, inflationism, and protectionism, and managed by resurgent militant nationalism. Efforts to achieve globalist goals are quickly abandoned when the standard of living drops, unemployment rises, stock markets crash, and artificially high wages are challenged by market forces. When tight budgets threaten spending cuts, cries for expanding the welfare state drown out any expression of concern for rising deficits. The effort in recent decades to unify government surveillance over all world trade and international financial transactions through the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, the WTO, the ICC, the OECD, and the Bank of International Settlements can never substitute for a peaceful world based on true free trade, freedom of movement, a single but sound market currency, and voluntary contracts with private property rights. Great emphasis in the last 6 years has been placed on so-called productivity increases that gave us the new era economy. Its defenders proclaim that a new paradigm had arrived. Though productivity increases have surely helped our economy, many astute observers have challenged the extent to which improvement in productivity have actually given us a distinctly new era. A case can be made that the great surge in new technology of the 1920s far surpassed the current age of fast computers, and we all know what happened in spite of it after 1929. A truly new era may well be upon us, but one quite different than what is generally accepted today. The biggest error in interpreting today's events is the totally ignoring of how monetary policy in a fiat system affects the entire economy. Politicians and economists are very familiar with business cycles, with most assuming that slumps erupt as a natural consequence of capitalism, an act of God, or as a result of Fed-driven high interest rates. That is to say, the Fed did not engage in enough monetary debasement becomes the most common complaint by Wall Street pundits and politicians. But today's economy is unlike anything the world has ever known. The world economy is more integrated than ever before. Indeed, the effort by international agencies to expand world trade has had results, some good. Labor costs have been held in check. Industrial producers have moved to less regulated, low-cost, and low-tax countries, while world mobility has aided these trends, with all being helped with advances in computer technology. But the artificial nature of today's world trade and finance being systematically managed by the IMF, the World Bank, and the WTO are driven by a worldwide fiat monetary system has produced imbalances that have already prompted many sudden adjustments. There have been 8 major crises in the last 6 years requiring a worldwide effort led by the Fed to keep the system afloat, all being done with more monetary inflation and bailouts. The linchpin to the outstanding growth of the 1990s has been the U.S. dollar. Although it too is totally fiat, its special status has permitted a bigger bonus to the United States while it has been used to prop up other world economies. The gift bequeathed to us by owning the world reserve currency allows us to create dollars at will. And Alan Greenspan has not hesitated to accommodate everyone, despite his reputation as an inflation fighter. This has dramatically raised our standard of living and significantly contributed to the new era psychology that has been welcomed by so many naive enough to believe that perpetual prosperity had arrived and the bills would never have to be paid. One day it will become known that technological advances and improvements in productivity also have a downside. This technology hid the ill effects of the monetary mischief the Fed had enthusiastically engaged in the past decade. Technological improvements while keeping the CPI and the PPI prices in check led many, including Greenspan, to victoriously declare that no inflation existed and that a new era had indeed arrived. Finally, it's declared that the day has arrived that printing money is equivalent to producing wealth and without a downside. Counterfeit works. But the excess credit created by the Fed found its way into the stock market, especially the NASDAQ, and it was ignored. This set the stage for the stock market collapse now ongoing. Likewise, ignored has been the excess capacity, malinvestment, and debt that permeates the world economy.